Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2024 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. One of my favourite races, if not my absolute favourite race of the season. I love this track, and more often than not, it tends to throw up a great race. It's also a sprint weekend, and this is one of the circuits on the calendar that seems to suit the format, so I'm really looking forward to this one, more so than usual. But anyway, enough for that. Let's crack on with the preview, starting as always with a look at the track and all the usual stats that follow. Oh, and very quickly, apologies if I sound a bit groggy today. I'm full of cold, so, get your tiny violins out and all of that. Poor Sean. So last weekend F1 was in Mexico, where Carlos Sainz took the win for Ferrari, the team's second in as many races, but now it is on to Brazil for the 21st round of the season, and the final race of this triple header before F1 takes another break, because, why not? A lap of the fantastic Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, or Interlagos for short, is 4.309 kilometers long. If you prefer that in miles, that is just over 2.6 and is made up of 15 corners with 71 laps scheduled for Sunday's race. That's 24 for the sprint. And the race at record is a 1:10.540, which was set by Valtteri Bottas back in 2018. We have got two DRS zones in use this time, with the first running between turns 3 and 4, its detection point just before turn 2, and the second zone is on the long run from between turns 14 and 15 all the way to turn 1, with its detection point just after turn 13. Turns 1 and 4, probably the most likely spots will see some overtaking action, but there are opportunities elsewhere if anyone fancies a dive bomb in the middle sector, for example. There is one major change to the circuit this weekend, and that is that the entire track, including the pit lane, has been resurfaced. And so the track surface will be a completely unknown factor for drivers and teams this weekend, to add to the unpredictability we already have this season, the limited practice due to the sprint, as well as the safety car risk and the chance of rain rocking up too. More on the weather shortly. And last season, I know this will come as a total shock, but Max Verstappen did the double by winning the race and the sprint, with Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso joining him on the podium on Sunday. Fernando taking that top 3 spot following an epic battle with Sergio Perez that went right down to the wire. More of the same this year, please. And did you know that we've had 3 different winners from the last 3 Sunday races at Interlagos? And as if that wasn't enough, since the start of the turbo hybrid era in 2014, 5 different drivers, that's Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen and George Russell, have all won races at the circuit, excluding sprints. And the funny thing is that it just so happens that 3 is the number of dry tyre compounds available across a race weekend, and 5 is the number of dry tyre compounds in the Pirelli range. Oh yes, that's right, it is a double segue into Tyre Talk time. The compounds available for this one then are, as they were last weekend, the softest in the Pirelli range, and so they are the hard C3, the medium C4 and the soft C5. Now, when it comes to the new track surface mentioned earlier, Pirelli explains that it was thoroughly cleaned using a high-pressure water washing system that removes the sheen that usually appears on brand new bitumen, and this has also increased the abrasiveness of the surface. The manufacturer's preview press release goes on to add that the new surface could see a lowering of lap times and therefore an increase of the stress the tyres are subjected to, which, to be fair, tends to be moderate at Interlagos. It's also important to point out that track evolution will be very high this weekend, and don't forget, drivers only have the 1 practice session to lay down some rubber before the start of sprint qualifying. This has the potential to be a chaotic weekend. The fastest strategy tends to be a 2-stop here, and last year's winning strategy was just that, although with the early red flag, Max Verstappen did actually make 3 tyre changes. The Dutchman started on the softs, changed to another set of the softs on lap 2 under that red flag, before switching to the mediums on lap 27 and then to a final fresh set of softs on lap 56. Also worth a mention, the compounds are a step softer this year than they were last year, so that could mix things up a little bit too. As for the final few things well worth a mention when it comes to strategy, the total pit lane lost time last season was largely between 23 and 25 seconds. The safety car loves to make an appearance at Interlagos, with each of the last 4 races and 6 of the last 7 featuring at least 1. And the weather can be very unpredictable at Interlagos, and rain can move in very quickly, so any forecast is likely to change massively by the time we get to the weekend and even in the sessions. But as I sit here and record this on Wednesday afternoon, rain is around for pretty much the whole weekend, particularly Saturday and Sunday, with a high risk of a shower at some stage during the race on Sunday. And as always, the most recent forecast as of Thursday morning is on screen for you now to have a look at. And your schedule for this one is largely an evening one here in the UK, Europe and elsewhere too, I'm sure, but a little bit earlier than the last couple of races. Also, as mentioned earlier, it's a sprint weekend, so that means FP1 will get the event underway on Friday at 2:30 p.m. GMT, and sprint qualifying is later that same day at 6:30 p.m. The sprint race kicks off Saturday's F1 action at 2 p.m. with Grand Prix qualifying underway from 6 p.m. And it is lights out for the race on Sunday at 5 p.m. and once again that is in UK time. Now, before I make some predictions, let's have a quick run through a few news stories and talking points ahead of the weekend in Brazil. So first up today, although it hasn't been made official by the team at time of recording, Max Verstappen could be set to take an engine penalty this weekend in Sao Paulo. As I'm sure you remember, Verstappen's running was heavily restricted last Friday with Red Bull opting to change his engine for final practice on Saturday, and the engine he switched to was an older one already in the pool, meaning he avoided a grid drop on Sunday. However, speaking to Austrian outlet ORF, Helmut Marko explained that the engine Verstappen used in Mexico was no longer intended for racing, and the car was missing 3 to 8 kilometers an hour on the straights again, according to Marko. He went on to say that any penalty will be 5 places on the grid rather than a hefty 10, before adding that wouldn't be so severe in Brazil because overtaking is easier than it is at some other circuits. So although the team hasn't officially announced anything, the suggestion is there from Marko, and of course if anything gets announced between me saying this and the video going out, I will pin something in the comments, but keep an eye on this one. Elsewhere, ahead of Audi's full takeover of Sauber, the team has made some new appointments as more changes are made to the senior leadership structure. Gianpaolo Dallara will join the team in the new role of head of race engineering to help optimise alignment on all car performance related topics, as the race engineering department has been integrated into Sauber's technical group. Former Ferrari strategist Inaki Rueda has been appointed as sporting director and will be responsible for overseeing all sporting activities and will manage relationships with the FIA, as well as all trackside regulatory matters. Beat Zender, who has worked with Sauber since the 1980s, will move into a supervisory role as the Director of Signature Programs and Operations in 2025, and that will allow him to ensure the heritage of the Sauber team continues to grow, upholds its core values, and leads efforts to innovate and shape its future. And the FIA has announced that F1 power unit manufacturers Honda and Alpine have agreed to pay fines for procedural breaches of the FIA's engine cost cap rules. The breaches pertain to a failure to file accurate reporting documentation for the 2023 reporting period, as the documentation submitted included incorrect, excluded and/or adjusted costs regarding dyno maintenance and the costs of inventories. Honda accepted the procedural breach and so will have to pay a financial penalty of $600,000 to the FIA within 30 days, while also paying the costs incurred by the CCA in connection with the preparation of the breach agreement. Alpine's power unit department was also offered an accepted breach agreement, that's an ABA, by the CCA, after being found to have submitted required documentation on April 2nd, 2024, containing significant deficiencies. The FIA states that several required procedures had not been completed at all, while several other procedures had only been partially completed. Having breached the power unit financial regulations by delaying the CCA in carrying out its functions, as well as submitting inaccurate documentation through the omission of relevant information, Alpine accepted its ABA and must pay the FIA $400,000 and associated costs relevant to the ABA's preparation. Right then, time to make some predictions, and as always, please do not take these too seriously. They're just a little bit of fun, but if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And last time, amazing once again. Wrong on everything apart from Charles Leclerc finishing in 3rd place. About right, though, to be fair, but let's pretend we didn't see that and move on very quickly. This week, it's as tough as ever. It is, as I say all the time now, so unpredictable. But when you throw in the lottery that Brazil can be, it makes it even tougher. But I'd be very surprised if this isn't another Ferrari versus McLaren weekend with Max Verstappen getting in the mix too, despite an engine penalty. Again, it's also a sprint weekend, so that's another curveball thrown into the mix. I'm going to hop straight into them this week because, frankly, I suspect this video is already long enough. And working on the assumption Max Verstappen does take that engine penalty, I'll go with him for the sprint pole and sprint win. He has, after all, shown many times that he is capable of dialing his car in with the limited practice running on a sprint weekend. But say that Lando Norris will start Sunday's race from P1 and fends off Charles Leclerc to take the win, with Verstappen recovering to P3. Although, given his performance in Mexico, it is tough to not put Carlos Sainz up there, and we can't write off Oscar Piastri either. But I'll go with 3 different teams in the top 3 again because it keeps it somewhat interesting. As for best of the rest, so the 4th best finishing team on Sunday, it's likely going to come as no surprise, but I'm going with Mercedes again. I know they've gone well at Interlagos in recent years, but they just seem to have fallen away from McLaren and Ferrari and at some weekends Red Bull too lately, although they have been able to pick up the pieces when someone slips up, so you never know, and I guess you can't completely discount them. As for some separate bolder picks, I'll go with points finishes for Franco, Colapinto and Liam Lawson. A surprise top 3 finish in the sprint for Kevin Magnussen, that would be a surprise and fantastic as well. And let's forget everything I've just said and say that we get absolute chaos because the rain hits massively hard on Sunday, and that allows Fernando Alonso to take a shock win at Interlagos. Could you imagine? That would be absolutely amazing. But given the pace the Aston has, Fernando's going to need some chaos to stand any chance of getting anywhere near the podium like he did last year. That is it then for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix preview, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comments section down below. And to catch up on all the latest Formula 1 news and reaction, head on over to planetf1.com. Now, I will be back on Saturday with the qualifying watch-along, and I might do a sprint watch-along too. I'll make that call tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And I will, of course, be live with Stuart again shortly after the race on Sunday for some race reaction. In the meantime, though, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really does help the channel in its battle with the YouTube algorithm, and consider subscribing too so you don't miss any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.